Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hope most of you have already joined on board. We're very excited to welcome you today. It's a very exciting day for us. We're welcoming the Department of Energy at the federal level. It's the beginning of a very exciting summer webinar series that we're launching. The name of the webinar series is the Funding and Partnering Opportunities with the DOE Summer 2020 webinar series. And we're working directly with the Office of Technology Transitions. We're very excited because I know that there's been a lot of discussion on how to engage the Department of Energy, some of the exciting opportunities that are being developed nationwide. As many of you may already know, they have about 17 national labs throughout the country. And it's really exciting for us to just engage. Over last summer, we actually had an opportunity to go out to the Brookhaven National Lab, and it was just a fascinating experience to see some of the pioneering technology that's being developed at that lab, and then hearing about some of the other exciting work that's taking place across the country. The purpose of this webinar series, which just for everyone's knowledge is every 2 weeks at the same time, so every Thursday at 1 p.m., we're going to be welcoming speakers from the Department of Energy to help us better understand the different opportunities that exist. But the purpose is really an opportunity for us to connect the startup community, the incubators, the innovators, the universities, researchers, as well as scientists, and all just helping us to engage with the senior leadership at the Department of Energy to understand some of those funding and partnering opportunities that exist. And so today you're going to hear firsthand from several individuals who are going to provide us with an overview. And then over the next couple of weeks, we're going to start to dive a little deeper into some of the work within some of the specific offices, as well as from some of the specific labs themselves, and talk about some of those commercialization opportunities. A little bit about who we are. My name is Robinson Hernandez. I'm the Executive Director of the Urban Tech Hub program at Company. We work in partnership with the New York City Economic Development Corporation in trying to support the urban tech community, which includes the clean tech sector. And our purpose is trying to create a dynamic home, and just really trying to create a fostering environment where we help these companies excel and understand the different opportunities that exist across the country. So for us, we were very excited when we found the opportunity to work with the Department of Energy, their enthusiasm, especially from the folks that you're going to hear about what's going on. So that's it's a pleasure. We're going to hear today from 3 individuals. We're going to hear from the Undersecretary for Science, Paul DeBar. We're going to also hear from the Chief Commercialization Officer, Connor Prohaska, as well as the Technology Transfer Working Group Chair, Matthew Biasini. But before we jump into hearing from them, I just want to send a couple of quick shout outs because we're very excited. We're very thankful for the effort that went into putting this all together. From the DOE folks, the Tech Transitions Office was very helpful. I want to thank Charlie Versamano, Peebles Squires, as well as Marcos Gonzalez Harsha. Anna from our team, who's just been instrumental in putting this together, and then other helpful organizations like NECEC, New York City EDC. So with that said, a little bit of housekeeping. There is an opportunity for Q&A. However, what we will ask is that you type those Q&A questions into, there's a box at the bottom where it says Q&A or a little button. You can click into those, and what we'll do is as we collect those, we're going to save these for the end. We're going to then go ahead and select some questions, and we're going to present them to the panelists. So it is my honor, though, to introduce Connor Prohaska. He is the Chief Commercialization Officer, as well as the Director for the Office of Technology Transitions. As part of the agency's leadership team, he manages day-to-day operations, as well as providing strategic leadership to the agency. He's helping to connect the private sector with a lot of the federal efforts that are underway. Prior to coming on board to the DOE, he worked at the Public Investment Fund and also served in the U.S. Navy, obtaining the rank of lieutenant. So we're very thankful to have you and our esteemed panelists. And with that, I hand over the baton. So welcome, Connor. Very excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Robinson, and thank you for Urban Tech Hub for helping us connect with so many great entrepreneurs and be a part of the ecosystem, which is one of our major goals here in the Office of Technology Transition and at the Department of Energy. As Robinson said, my name is Connor Prohaska. I'm the Chief Commercialization Officer for the Department of Energy, and in that role, I'm also the Director of the Office of Technology Transitions. The Department of Energy, for those of you that aren't very familiar with it, is wildly misnamed. It's really more or less the Department of Nuclear Weapons Security and Research and Development. And you're going to hear a lot about the vast research. You're going to hear about a lot of the scientific breakthroughs that we work on and what we work on across our 17 national labs. It goes from just about every physical science that you can think of, but also some amazing facilities from supercomputers to light sources to proton accelerators. And these are activities, these are facilities, and these are researchers that are available to you in the innovation ecosystem of the United States of America. And we want to make sure we can do everything we can to put great policies in place to make sure that you can be a part of these opportunities, that you can access these opportunities and facilities, and that you're aware of them. And that's part of what we're doing here and why we reached out and we're connected to Urban Tech Hub and the ecosystem in New York City in particular, because we know that there's some vast innovation potential realized and unrealized right now across the country. And we want to make sure that we are out opening up any avenues or front doors, as I like to call it, to the Department of Energy to make sure that we're maximizing the impact of the U.S. taxpayer dollar, which we believe is very important. I would like to foot stomp that you're going to hear today from obviously the agency leadership or the department leadership of Undersecretary DeBar, and also a lab representative from Matthew Bassini at Savannah River National Lab. But we have these facilities, we have these abilities and these capabilities across the complex, but there's also a big role that the department has been asked to do by the White House and Congress on the Hill and department leadership to make sure that we are paying attention and nurturing regional innovation energy ecosystems. And we intend to do that. And right now, particularly in this difficult time of COVID, we are keeping our ear to the ground to make sure that we know what we can do to help maintain and enhance the energy innovation ecosystem that we have seen such great strides in over the past decade, and how we can continue to nurture that going forward. So one request is that if you do have any ideas, please reach out to Robinson or reach out to the Office of Technology Transitions, OTT at hq.doe.gov. That's OTT at hq.doe.gov. And please let us know. We can't fix problems we don't know exist, but we are eager to help in this difficult time, and we're confident that through the work and innovation of the United States that we'll make it through successfully. With that, that's kind of a quick intro to what I do at the Department of Energy, but it is my honor and pleasure to introduce my boss, the Undersecretary of Science. In his role as the Undersecretary of Science, Undersecretary DeBar is responsible for the vast majority, 10 of our 17 national labs, and the vast majority of our research efforts at the Department of Energy. For those that don't know, the department does about $18 billion worth of research annually. That's a pretty large portfolio. Additionally, he also has in his portfolio the large nuclear waste cleanup mission called environmental management here at the department, and then thirdly, OTT in my office here. So it's a great honor and pleasure to introduce you to Undersecretary DeBar. He's got a vast background in private finance, and like myself, he's a former Navy or a Navy veteran as well. So with that, sir, Undersecretary DeBar, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Connor, for all that. Let me give a bit of a survey of the department and a little bit more of the scope that Connor started discussing. So the Department of Energy was really started by the Manhattan Project. It was actually, if you think of the Manhattan Project, was started in New York City at Columbia University by people working with Albert Einstein. And obviously moved on from there. And the core of the Manhattan Project were the three original national labs that were there, obviously, for that important World War II project. That was at Oak Ridge, Hanford, and Los Alamos. and another New Yorker was Robert Oppenheimer from the Upper West Side. Actually, was running that at Los Alamos, as people may remember from history. And as Connor said, we've since those original 3, we've expanded it to 17 national labs. There are 60,000 people who work in the National Lab Complex doing R&D across a number of different areas. And as Connor mentioned, it's a non-defense R&D budget of $18 billion a year. And when I talk to people in the private sector and they say, so what do you do as undersecretary? The very short sentence, the way I like to describe it is, I run operations and I allocate capital. Running operations is that we have a tremendous amount of people that work for us, running the most complicated and large facilities for research, both for ourselves and to give access to other people. And we allocate capital. We allocate R&D dollars. Some is in discovery science, like dark energy and dark matter, and some are incredibly applied, like next generation batteries beyond lithium-ion chemistries. And so the scope of the investments that we have, I think, usually stuns people, and the amount of dollars that we spend into R&D tends to stun people. As a result of, and I'll defer, I won't talk about the defense aspects of the department, which are quite large, just to focus on the non-defense side. There are 2 what I would call giant buckets of description of what we work on. One is energy, and obviously we still are the #1 investor in R&D for energy, and once again focused on new technologies that the private sector is not focused on. So this is about pushing the bounds of discovery science and initial designs and science of a particular type to try to drive energy. I'll talk a little bit about that. And the other areas that we call the large bucket of science. And we are primarily focused on the physical sciences. I'll talk about that also in a little bit, but that also has broad applications. There's a long history here of us having worked with the private sector and commercialized technologies. Most obvious one is nuclear power, the whole nuclear topic, nuclear power, nuclear imaging, nuclear medicine. So if you go get any scans because of heart or cardiovascular, you get medical isotopes that we not only discovered and commercialized, but still actually provide to the private sector. We have a whole business of that actually producing isotopes. The MRI machine, the Human Genome Project. Most people don't realize the Human Genome Project, before it was picked up at Berkeley and then subsequently at MIT and Harvard, was actually identified at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, started at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, which is one of ours. And then the last one, just to hit on something here recently, and it's a very, very long list of things, but the lithium-ion battery. DOE funded the team that just received the Nobel Prize this last year in lithium-ion battery chemistry. And there's a whole string of work we're doing on beyond lithium-ion battery chemistries that could significantly jump current performance levels of lithium-ion. So those are a little bit of history of what we do, a little bit of scope. And so to a large degree, we have kind of 2 buckets of where we can interact with people. One, at our prop R&D, which is the 17 national labs I was just describing, we have resources, big facilities, computing, imaging, so on, and people, researchers that we fund to work in these areas. And then secondly, we put money out the door, and Connor may kind of talk about this also, which we have various programs to issue grants, effectively equity that you could get access, but we don't hold on to any of the equity. We just give grant money out to help push along research and development in all the areas that we cover. So those are our various funding opportunity announcements that we call them FOAs, and we push money out the door that way. So that's one way that we interact and provide a significant amount of dollars to businesses. A lot of them are small businesses for new innovations. Within the lab complex of how people can work with us, I'll give you, there's 3 major ways that people work with us. The first one is, if we've invented a certain technology, we will never commercialize it, right? We're the federal government, we're an R&D organization. If we invent something ourselves through our own research dollars, we will license it. And the victory for us is that if we invent something and someone else grabs it and runs with it and produces a business, produces a technology, helps out humankind in a certain area, that's a victory for us, right? And so that's the first one, licensing. The next one is a bit of a continuum here, is called a cooperative research agreement. So if someone at DOE is at a national lab, is doing research in a particular area, such as perovskite crystals to replace PV as an alternative to PV for solar panels, and that technology is not quite to the point of being licensed, there's still research going on, we're doing it. And if one of you at a company or a startup wants to work with us, kind of hand in hand, to develop the technology, given that we're working on it, you're working on it, then we negotiate to identify what do you want to bring to the table, what are we bringing to the table, and how we share the IP. So that's called the CRADA, it's called the Cooperative Research Agreement. And the third one in that kind of continuum is called Work for Others. The acronym we call it's called SPP. And that is if you see we have research capabilities, testing capabilities that you don't have. It's particularly attractive to small companies, but we work with very large companies, Honeywell, GE, AbbVie on the biology side, in which we have capabilities on imaging and testing that would literally take billions of dollars to replicate. But we will give you time, we will do the work for you, and you pay us, and you own the IP. So that's the three broad strokes that we have here that we work on. And so going back to the specifics of the sort of things that we do, that we fund and we do research on, the first one, as I mentioned, was energy, applied energy. We are the Department of Energy. And so there's a number of major areas. We deal with renewables and efficiency, with electricity in the grid, nuclear energy, fossil energy, all the major things that you would kind of think about. So what encompasses energy? We are the largest funders of R&D for new ideas, for new generation of topics. So I'll give you a few examples. I mentioned a couple of times now already about beyond lithium-ion batteries. For anyone who's in the battery and the storage space, knows a little bit about the chemistry options that are different than lithium-ion. It could be magnesium-based, sulfur-based, that we could probably get to performance levels, depending on the performance metric for batteries. We think with some of those chemistries at anywhere to 300 to 500% of lithium-ion. So if you stop and think about it, you know, instead of having a car that's an EV that could go at 250 or maybe 300 miles of charge, imagine you could do 1,000 miles of charge. That's actually, in many instances, could have a higher performance range than gasoline does in a current car. That's completely feasible. Imagine we're able to do different materials to cut down on costs and actually drive down the costs by the kind of inverse of 3 to 5 times. So let's say 75% less than lithium-ion right now. These are all completely feasible, and we're working on those. Started a new initiative on that, and as part of the new initiative on beyond lithium-ion battery chemistries, we actually want to work with startups, with entrepreneurs, with companies who want to commercialize that, want to manufacture portions of it, want to be customers of it. We're working on next generation solar, if you're familiar with perovskites, where we can literally print on films rather than large PV. We have a whole effort on that, which would obviously have potential great advantage for costs rather than a bit more challenging physically to manufacture PV panels. We have a whole area in cybersecurity. It's a big area for us. We are the coordinator for all the utility system and monitor and help react to cyber attacks on the electrical grid. So we're at the point of that. And as a result, we actually fund efforts to develop new cybersecurity capabilities, algorithms, deployments on hardware that we see is necessary for the country, and we fund third parties to help develop that. So there's many companies that we work with right now that we provide money to for them to develop the next generation of cybersecurity technologies and software to go do that. And another one just to pick on, which is in the electrical grid, very clearly with distributed generation, a lot more solar and wind, amongst other types of generations, spread much farther around than traditional central station power plants. Managing the grid is a giant effort of IT and systems that was never needed before under kind of older technology, and how to use AI or machine learning to dispatch power plants, conduct maintenance, and so on. We're all at the very early stage and fund that. So that's the whole the energy area. We have a whole separate area which we call science within our areas called the Office of Science. So within that, we are experts at chemistry. So there's another area of battery work there. The U.S. government is the largest developer of supercomputers in the world. We both help the semiconductor industry develop new fabrication techniques at large fab facilities. New York State has a number of them up in the Hudson Valley, all the way up to Albany, and how to actually go and fabricate new chips. And we end up being the first purchaser of the next high-end chip, and so we're both an R&D supporter as well as the first customer. A whole very large area that we are attacking is in the area of quantum information technologies. Too long to get into, but the three major buckets are in quantum computing, quantum networking, which is the quantum internet, and then quantum sensing. We are the leaders in particle physics in the world. Quantum, to a large degree, is either is a particle physics or a photonic-based physics, and DOE's the leader in those particular areas. One other factoid: we're the largest generator of Nobel Prize winners in the world, primarily in chemistry and in physics, as you might guess from this conversation. So that's a whole giant area that we've ramped up spending on by 500% since we've been here as a leadership team. And just to pick on New York, one of them is one of our national labs, Brookhaven, out on the North Shore, out by Riverhead, is one of the leaders in that topic, amongst others. We also do quite a bit of work in space. So the space industry, the commercializing space industry, we're obviously leaders in energy. Dealing with space, and that's but there's many others in space, including sensing, that we work with NASA, and obviously there's commercial applications. And then the last thing I'll hit on, and once again, the hard part about DOE is we've got far too much to talk about in terms of where we spend dollars and where we are trying to drive innovation, is in biology. And right now we're spending tremendous amounts of efforts in COVID. We have over 100 different COVID research projects. It comes from our history in biology. I talked about the Human Genome Project. And so across the complex, we're supporting various types of COVID research to a large degree, looking at imaging proteins within the COVID-19 virus, taking a look at which particular small molecules might have some efficacy, and then actually doing lab support, and ultimately trying to push that data out, and obviously already working with biotech companies on particular therapies or vaccines. The therapies focusing on things such as preventing the COVID virus from actually connecting with a piece of human biology, preventing the COVID virus from replicating in your body, and the last one is to disrupt the sort of messaging that COVID does within a human cell, which causes the problems. So I've just given you a very high degree of kind of summary of what's going on. It's a lot. We like to work with private enterprise to commercialize those sort of things. That's what we do for a living. So with that, I'll hand it over to Matt for some comments from him.
Thank you, sir, and we appreciate the inputs. And before we grab Matt, really, I think that helps give everyone a real good idea of kind of the breadth of technology that we're talking about at the Department of Energy. And what we're going to transition to now is, you've kind of heard some of the, as Undersecretary DeBar said, content, and that we are content rich. And what Matt will talk a little bit about here is, how do you actually marry up with the labs or deal with the DOE facilities. And one of the things that I do want to mention is that OTT, the Office of Technology Transitions, does run a website where we try to make that access point a little more, a little easier to get to. It's called Lab Partnering Service, and it's labpartnering.org, labpartnering.org. And there you can access facilities, researchers, and research, as I mentioned before. There's about 50,000 patents on there. There's a visual patent search to help. There's places where you can reach out and email directly to our researchers at our 17 national labs and facilities, and ask questions, and then obviously connect with any of our user facilities that are available. So that gives you some high-level input on how you can access some of that technology and some of those things that Undersecretary DeBar really just scratched the surface of what we are doing at the Department of Energy. Right now, it's my pleasure to introduce Matt Bassini, who's the manager of the Savannah River National Lab Contracts and Technology Partnerships Organization. He's also the current chair of the Technology Transfer Working Group, Technology Transition and Transfer Working Group, which consists of technology transfer personnel from across our 17 national labs. He has over 15 years of experience with business development and business transfer, technology transfer, supply chain sciences, and recruitment in both the government and commercial sectors. Right now, Matt, as he's down there in South Carolina, he enjoys spending time with his wife, and every once in a while trying to get around to golfing when his 3 daughters aren't keeping him around. So with that, Matt, thanks for joining us, and look forward to hearing a little bit more about the mechanisms and kind of the actual processes of marrying up with national labs and working with them.
Great. Thank you, Connor, and thank you folks at the Urban Tech Hub for hosting this webinar. I'm excited to join the virtual panel with Undersecretary DeBar and Chief Commercialization Officer Connor Prohaska to discuss the amazing work being conducted at the national labs and facilities that both drive innovation and commercialization across the country. Once again, my name is Matt Biasini. I'm the Tech Transfer Manager here at the Savannah River National Laboratory and the current chair of the Department of Energy's Technology Transfer Working Group. The group, which is comprised of over 300 tech transfer professionals from not just the national laboratories, but also single-purpose research facilities and production facilities. One of the core objectives of the working group is to develop and disseminate to the public and prospective tech transfer partners information about DOE and NSA tech transfer opportunities for partnering. And I believe this is the perfect opportunity to do just that. The department, as Undersecretary mentioned before, we have 17 national laboratories, another 3 production facilities and sites that also do conduct tech transfers. And they combine decades of experience with billions of dollars in R&D to address matters of national security, environmental stewardship, economic competitiveness, and energy sustainability. The technologies and capabilities developed and maintained to support core mission work can have concurrent benefits to businesses of all sizes, universities, and nonprofits through tech transfer mechanism. Partnering with a DOE laboratory facility has never been easier. Over the last couple of years, DOE leadership has championed regulatory reform efforts to provide more flexible agreement terms and also develop new mechanisms to leverage public-private partnerships. That translates to faster access to laboratory expertise. In the next few minutes, I'll go over some of the partnering mechanisms that we deploy at some of the laboratories. As the Undersecretary mentioned earlier on, 2 key mechanisms we use are cooperative research and development agreements, which is a fantastic mechanism to leverage intellectual assets between parties. And it facilitates private sector collaboration utilizing laboratories' technologies, processes, R&D capabilities, or technical know-how. The agreement provides the participant the option to negotiate a license for any laboratory inventions that result from the work performed, and protections for up to 5 years of commercially valuable information generated through the performance of the CRADA. A strategic partnership project enables members of industry nonprofit institutions and other non-federal entities to pay the laboratory to perform a defined scope of work. As an example mentioned earlier, if there's a material test, if there's an assessment of leveraging perhaps equipment or unique expertise at the laboratory, that mechanism is perfect for that. A recently established agreement that allows additional flexibility for the contractors to support industry is agreements for commercializing technology. It enables the contractors of each laboratory to act in a private capacity and conduct privately sponsored research at the contractor's risk. This allows the contractors themselves to enter into agreements similar to a commercial company may enter into an agreement, and it allows them to assume some of the risks. Perhaps you can establish concessions on indemnity requirements and also accept payment based on certain milestones or deliverables being met. A big program that I think all laboratories have an element here, and it's not just supporting the local, state and local governments, the economy, and the specific regions of the labs and plants, are technical assistance programs. So many labs offer a technical assistance program leveraging the expertise of laboratory scientists and engineers to help members of the small business community. Examples of those assistance include resolving technical problems, improving production or perhaps manufacturing processes, or advising on emerging products or technologies. The New Mexico Small Business Assistance Program is a great example, where small businesses facing technical challenges to have access to the unique expertise and capabilities of Los Alamos and Sandia National Labs. At no cost to the business, small businesses with a technical challenge can seek assistance from laboratory scientists or engineers for projects that require testing, design consultation, and access to special equipment or facilities that are not available in the private sector. Over $67 million of technical assistance has been provided to many more than 3,000 small businesses throughout the state of New Mexico. Savannah River here in the state of South Carolina offers something similar in conjunction with the Department of Commerce and the Manufacturing Extension Program. We do offer technical expertise to small businesses in the state. Idaho National Laboratory also manages a technical assistance program for small business, state and local governments, where the scientists and engineers provide without fee assistance, which is normally not available to a community or small business. It helps in areas where organizations may find their problems to be too complex or technical to solve on their own. As Undersecretary mentioned before, throughout our R&D efforts, we develop a lot of intellectual property. Connor mentioned that the lab partnering service is one of those resources that one could surf to and see the copious amounts of IP that exists throughout the complex. A standard licensing agreement that transitions the laboratory developed technologies to the marketplace. Those licenses may be exclusive, may narrow down to a specific field of use or geographic region, or perhaps even be non-exclusive. Many laboratories are even offering express or rapid technology deployment agreements that are designed to streamline transaction times with standardized terms that allow for quick licensing. As we face the challenges with COVID-19 at hand, a lot of the laboratories are stepping up to the plate, moving as fast as possible to once again offer IP that may be deployed to support the mission at hand. And that's a little or no cost for those businesses interested. So great partnering opportunities there. Another unique capability that exists within the department is user facilities, the user facility agreements. The construction and operation of large-scale scientific user facilities have been integral to the mission of the Department of Energy from the earliest days. Today, DOE Office of Science maintains and operates over 27 user facilities across the country as shared resources for the scientific community with access determined on a competitive basis using peer review. Tens of thousands of researchers make use of these facilities each year. These state-of-the-art facilities are open to industry and academic users for conducting research in diverse technology areas, including biology and medicine, chemistry and environmental sciences, high-performance computing, and physics and material science. It is possible to perform proprietary and non-proprietary research at these facilities. For non-proprietary research, there typically is no charge for those users, as long as they understand that they are expected to publish their results at the conclusion of their project. For proprietary research that is not intended for publication, access to those facilities is available on a full cost recovery basis. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, right outside Knoxville, Tennessee, they have the Manufacturing Demonstration Facility, or MDF, which was established in 2012. And it's the only designated user facility focused on performing early stage research and development to improve the energy and material efficiency, productivity, and competitiveness of American manufacturers. Research focuses on manufacturing analysis and simulation, composite and polymer systems, metal powder systems, metrology and characterization, machine tooling, large-scale metal systems, and robotics and automation. If you want a bit of a wow factor, I'd urge you all to Google 3D printed Shelby Cobra. Oak Ridge and some of their partners developed the Shelby Cobra a couple years back. It truly is a manufacturing marvel. I was in Oak Ridge last year and actually had an opportunity to see it taken for a test drive, and it's just amazing and a testament to the great efforts being conducted at the laboratories. In a little less than 2 months, Martin Schunen from Brookhaven National Laboratory will also be presenting, sponsored by Urban Tech Hub, discussing one of the user facilities up there in the Brookhaven National Laboratory. Another mechanism, another mode to collaborate and partner with the laboratories is through the small business research and small business tech transfer programs that are open and eligible to U.S. small businesses, which both programs offer small businesses the ability to collaborate with DOE national labs or partners as subcontractors. The SBIR STTR programs have 3 distinct phases. Phase 1 explores the feasibility of innovative concepts with awards roughly at $250,000. Phase 2 is really the principal R&D efforts used for process research and prototyping and development, with awards upwards of $1.5 million. And Phase 3 offers opportunities for small businesses to continue their Phase 1 and Phase 2 R&D work to pursue commercial applications of their R&D with non-SBIR STTR funding. Under Phase 3, federal agencies may award non-competitive follow-on grants to continue maturation and to meet the needs of those agencies and departments. And just the mechanism really are just the tip of the iceberg, as numerous programs and activities exist to strengthen the lab to market processes across the department. A fantastic program that many labs and mentors and companies participate in often is the Energy I-Corps program. I understand there is a webinar on that here later on, but the program aims to accelerate the deployment of energy technologies by granting DOE lab scientists and engineers access to direct market feedback on their technology offering. It was inspired by the National Science Foundation's Innovation Core Model program, and it's a 2-month program that empowers and educates teams and provides them tools, the resources and relationships necessary to discover their technology and perhaps the market pathways for their innovations. And the teams return to the lab with a framework for industry engagement. So not only are we reaching out to companies, but we're also educating scientists and engineers to how to help promote that and bring that faster to industry. Other programs offered within the department is the Technology Commercialization Fund. It is nearly a $20 million funding opportunity annually that leverages the R&D funding and the applied energy programs to mature promising energy technologies with the potential for high impact. It utilizes a portion of funding for the department's applied energy research, development, demonstration, and commercial application budget for each fiscal year from various program offices. And these funds are matched with funds from private partners to help mature and promote promising energy tech for commercial purposes. Connor mentioned earlier before, the department has stood up the lab partnering services, which maintains a comprehensive database of lab-derived intellectual property. It also has laboratory experts. So you can see real time that Joe and Jane are available to help support battery research or the latest techniques for additive manufacturing. Their profiles are available. The ability to send them an email and reach out and seek real-time support from some of our laboratory experts is available and contained on this the website. And also the annual Technology Commercialization Fund, the TCF documents and call is also held on that website. Argonne National Laboratory outside of Chicago stewards the Chain Reactions Innovations, a program for inventors focused on energy and science technologies. Through an annual call for inventors, 4 to 6 teams are selected to join the chain reaction. It provides teams with innovators to a 2-year runway to develop and scale their technologies, while bringing the support necessary that covers salary, benefits, and use of laboratory equipment and office space. Through partnerships with mentor organizations, CRI participates receive assistance developing business strategies, conducting market research, and finding long-term financing of potential commercial partners. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory out there in Colorado has a program called AIM, Accelerating Inventions to Market, which offers awards to advance technologies toward commercial deployment in the market as products or services. The goal is to further develop technology with existing IP positions toward a commercial license with an industry partner. And it helps fill the gap between existing research projects and larger maturation projects, and how that time frame to transition to the market. Out at Lawrence Livermore, they hold annual webinars related to technology and market discovery programs to introduce lab technologies to entrepreneurs and angel investors. The technologies and capabilities are described, and the attendees provide market-based feedback. Each webinar features a web presentation followed by an interactive Q&A session with the audience. Since 2011, more than 50 webinars have been presented. And these webinars are key activity in engaging and retaining the investor, entrepreneurial, and local business community network by Lawrence Livermore to transfer technologies out of the lab into the private sector. Many of the laboratories across the complex have very similar programs of finding ways to work with the economic development groups, work with the local and state regulators and organizations to bring that awareness to what's developed and the type of activities rendered at the laboratory. And here recently, as of last year, based on the support from Connor's office, the Office of Technology Transitions, invested $2.5 million across 12 projects as part of its practices to accelerate the commercialization of technology solicitation, which encourage the labs to develop new ways to increase technology commercialization by reducing barriers to accessing lab capabilities, lowering transaction costs, and improving the complex's ability to serve the private sector effectively. And the list goes on. And with all the investments made by the department to improve access to laboratory experts and its unique capabilities across the complex, it is clear that the department's sponsorship of the tech transfer mission and its investments to all the various programs has one simple goal in mind: maximizing the impact of research and development technologies developed to boost economic competitiveness and national security. And I appreciate all yours time. And Robinson, I'll hand it back over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Matthew. Really appreciate it. A lot of information being shared there. One question that's kind of come up a bit is there somewhere where folks can go, or is it to see this information? Because there's a lot on all of the different programs. Is it the Department of, is it the DOE website?
So great point, which I should have mentioned earlier. So my predecessors and those before them with the Technology Transfer Working Group have developed guides. So there's guides to partnering with the DOE laboratories. There's also licensing guides that just kind of explains the process that goes through. What I'll do is I'll forward those guides and those links to you, and if we can share out to the attendees, that would be great.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much. What we'll go ahead and do is, for everyone who's actually registered, as long as we have that email, we can go out and we can send some of that information to make sure that you have access to it, because it's a lot of great information that's being shared. And I'm sure if many of you, like me, are just kind of scribbling away like, wow, these are keywords I want to remember, and how to look up that information later on. So thank you. We're going to jump into
Robinson, I would add one more thing there, and this is a discussion that has often come up when we tell people about all the great things the department does. And there's an ask for, is there a leave behind, or is there something, a brochure? And, the joke that we make is that a brochure would probably not even fit a U-Haul truck based on the size and capacity that we have. So one of the things we have noticed that really helps is when someone comes to us with a specific ask or a need or a technology area they're asked that they are interested in, and we, without fail, are usually able to connect them with someone working in that discipline, someone that can help them guide them to the right program office, national lab, or facility.
Great. So yeah, so I will remind everyone, earlier on, Connor shared an email with the group. It's ott@hq.doe.gov, but it's also at the beginning of the chat. So just make sure you note that down, because I do think, we're going to go through some of the Q&A here, but some of them are very, very specific. And to Connor's point, I think it might be a little bit more helpful and beneficial for you guys to be able to email them directly and get that information from them. So with that said, let's just jump into some of these questions. Thank you to all. And one question that came up, and hope you don't mind, I'm going to mention the people's names when possible. In certain cases, I've actually, grouped some of the questions together because we've actually had quite a bit of interest. Jill Vassar, you said there are many opportunities for startups to secure funding for their own R&D. There are very few to support the incubators and accelerators that are in turn supporting the startups. Other than the Build to Scale program, formerly RIS or I6, are there funding opportunities for entrepreneur support organizations?
The short answer is there has been about a decade ago, and we're working on a new set of funding opportunities to attack that specific problem, because incubators, they're in a different they're a different class of business. They're a different business model. It's different than the small businesses that they're helping to get off the ground. And so when I mentioned that we really want to make sure that we are supporting that ecosystem, that's exactly what we're talking about and what we're interested in helping out. So that is coming imminently. We are working overtime at the Office of Technology Transitions to get that money out the door. Because we think it's much more valuable, to, particularly in this time and space, to get that money into the incubator's hands rather than wait any longer. So we're working hard to get that moving as fast as we can.
Thank you. Another question from Richard Layton. Could you give more details on the programs that are funding companies to develop cybersecurity technologies and next generation hardware, and details or contracts on how companies like his can pursue these opportunities to help out?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and comment to that. So the way DOE works is that there's various offices, each on each of those technology areas. So there's a specific office called CSER, which is emergency cybersecurity emergency response. And so the best way to do that is to look at the funding opportunities coming out of that particular office. They put out quite a bit every year. They tend to be in very specific topics. It could be in industrial control cyber. It could be in grid technologies. It could be dealing with computing security, given our computing footprint. So there's a number of topic areas that they come out every year. And so typically what happens is, they might have, X tens of millions of dollars, and they might have 5 million of grant money, proposed for this, or 10 million for that. And then basically you pitch. It's not horribly complicated. It's not much different than much in the private sector, in which, that there's a bucket of money. Then they tell you how to submit your proposal, AKA your pitch. And so what I would do is, if you're interested specifically in that, I would take a look at the CSER office website, and that they put and there's a way that they post every time a funding opportunity announcement for grants to come out on that topic. And by the way, I can apply this to any of the offices, frankly, this sort of format. And so you just make certain you see where they post it, and when they post it, you see what the pitch requirements are, and you write up your proposal and you submit it. And so, and once again, they tend to be in very specific buckets. What we do every year is that as we get a new bucket of money in the next fiscal year from Congress, we identify what's the latest in cybersecurity that we feel we need to push on, or in any of the other R&D efforts. So that's the way I would do that to get on that loop of the postings and see if it makes sense for you to make a pitch for some of the money.
Thank you, Undersecretary. Another question we have is, do the labs engage in activities promoting STEM, internships, activities, fairs, or people focused on the talent pipeline for future STEM leaders?
Yeah, so like anything, yeah. Oh, I'll give a couple of comments and let the other two also jump in. Like anything at DOE, we're big and vast and have tremendous numbers of programs dealing with STEM. I won't dive into it. Each national lab has their own STEM programs, which they show their own ideas about how to engage, whether it's in the city of Chicago or dealing with native tribes in Idaho or so on. So there's various different versions depending on the location. And so there's various programs, and you have to kind of look lab by lab because they're a little bit like individual university campuses. There are within certain offices kind of early careers. So this is people who graduated for the most part with graduate degrees in chemistry or physics or material science, where we will actually hire people. We obviously, with 60,000 people, we hire tremendous numbers of people at the lab complex. And so each individual lab has their own hiring and their own STEM programs, and a lot of them are for early careers, aka people who are right out of, for the most part, graduate school. We do other things besides grad students and some other of the national labs. So each individual lab has STEM programs is clearly, I think, one example. But I'll comment. I'll leave it open to the other two for other comments.
Matthew?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. So for example, here at Savannah River, we do an extensive, as part of our daily habits, is the school systems, elementary, middle school, high school, the local colleges. Usually in the mid to late winter, you have internship opportunities that start to post. So it's important for our talent pipeline to ensure that we have that STEM outreach activities ongoing throughout the year. And we not just have just generalized ones. We work with the HBCUs, historically disadvantaged HBCUs, universities, to bring those on through the Minority Serving Institute program. So us and many other laboratories bring on hundreds of interns and really continue to support those STEM activities annually.
Great, thank you. And we have
what I would encourage everyone to do is, if they're interested in a STEM opportunity for high schoolers, for college undergrads, or further, is that each national lab has different STEM programs. Obviously, this is a little bit of a different summer, but even in typical summers, you go to Brookhaven, for example, and they'll have a couple of hundred undergrads, like a very large cohort every summer. Some of them are high schoolers. You could go to our lab at Stanford, and sometimes they have high school programs for 1 or 2 weeks. So you have to kind of poke around because everyone's a bit unique. It's not the exact same, and it's not the exact same program for all 17 of the labs. So if you're interested in, hey, I'd like to have my high schooler go to Berkeley or Stanford for a week or two for the summer, you should take a look at, or an undergrad, you should take a look at their websites and see what they have proposed for that summer or that year.
Thank you. Thomas Sisto from XL Batteries over at Columbia University. He asks, you mentioned lowering fabrication materials cost and novel chemistry as 2 focuses for the DOE. Is there a specific program officer or contact to interface that might be interested in finding common ground for other DOE opportunities? This is a very specific question, but figured, in these types of questions, how should they reach out? Is this, again, the email, just reach out, or do we have a specific answer for this?
Yeah, so there's a number of programs that touch on that, and we'd be happy to connect them. The first one that comes to mind is we have the Advanced Manufacturing Office and our Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office. Among those many efforts that office takes care of, also specifically with labs, our Oak Ridge National Laboratory runs the Advanced Manufacturing Demonstration Facility that works in this area as well. So the long and short of it is there's actually a number of different labs. And one thing that we work hard on is to make sure that we understand the nuances of which parts and where these offices are actually concentrating their efforts to make that right connection, and also understand how disparate, if you will, across the complex efforts like that are.
Great, thank you. Also, a couple of questions on commercialization. So can you elaborate a little bit more on phase 3, the commercialization phase, and how DOE can help small businesses or companies achieve that objective? For example, are there any financial support provided in phase 3, or is it mostly business development support? Like, what are some of those opportunities that can be presented?
So it is you know, in a lot, depending on the program that we're situated in. So I'd refer us back to, for instance, our Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA-E, which has a mandate in its statute to work on commercialization. And in that world, they are helping with business development plans throughout the research chain and the lifespan of the technology. In other areas, we are looking, based on guidance from Congress, into seeing what does demonstration actually look like, how is that defined. We're still working to get more clarity on that, but it is a way that we've gotten instruction, particularly from Congress, to discuss those commercialization efforts that are a little bit further down the line than the department traditionally gets into. And we also have a number of applied offices that do exactly what it sounds like, which is applied technologies that we want to help incorporate.
Excellent. Excellent. That may actually lead to a good question that Sansa Kazazi asked. How does one proceed to engage if there isn't a specific program that fits the innovation a company is working on?
So I would point you to, for instance, once again, I just mentioned our ARPA-E program. They hold opens on a regular basis that we can really are open to any of the best ideas that exist. And sometimes there are different levels of funding, but that's one great area to really find a niche if you don't think you fit into one of those narrow buckets that is being currently put out. Which I also want to make sure everybody understands. There's a bunch of narrow buckets, so it doesn't really preclude much different technology. It's just you need to find the right niche to connect, and that's what we hope to do.
Right. Let's add another question. In terms of tech transfer from the laboratories, and this may be a little bit of a challenging question, but what would we say are technologies in the lab that you feel are most ripe for immediate commercialization, or that fill vital needs for the country that would like to see commercialized urgently?
Always hard to pick the most interesting one in something of our scale and scope. You know, I'll hit on just a couple, you know, off the kind of top of my head. You know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we're the leaders in physics in the world. And one particular area that we've quintupled the amount of dollars that we've put against the technology is around quantum information technologies. So that's utilizing either photons or individual matter qubits like ions to store data rather than transistors, and to make either computers, internet, or sensing from that technology. The original idea came from Niels Bohr on quantum mechanics over 100 years ago, but it's only very recently that technologies are being made that we could isolate an atom or isolate a photon to the point of programming information into it, rather than a 1 or a 0 and a transistor, and trying to make those go as fast as possible and put as many on a chip as possible. That is rocketing forward in terms of interest. It's far too long to get into all the different aspects of that. But there's a new national bill. We're standing up 5 new centers of research. The National Science Foundation is standing up new university programs, and Commerce is standing up a quantum information technology private consortium, who I was just on the phone with yesterday again. And so there's big companies doing this. Google has put in tremendous amounts, and IBM and others, but there's startups like Rigetti and others. And quantum computing is kind of the forefront of the technology. That's clearly interesting. The other one, which I would mention, is in the energy area, is in the area of fusion. And you know, the joke around fusion was it's always 30 years out, and next year will be 30 years out, and the following year will be 30 years out. It looks like it's a much more near-term possibility to get to greater than a net energy out machine. Obviously, fusion works. We look at the sun, The challenge is really the technology to contain it and to do it in an energy efficient manner, so we're getting more energy out than we're putting in to contain the fusion reaction. There has been over $1 billion raised in the private equity markets in the last 2 years for fusion startups. That's a really interesting area, and many of them feel like they're going to finally get to a net energy out machine anywhere from the next, call it 3 to 7 years. And they're all building machines to actually try to actually have it be net out. And there's several companies doing that right now here in the United States, and the U.S. is the leader in the private fusion industry, and we support them through various efforts. So I'll give you those as my personal 2 examples of truly humanity-changing technologies that we're working on and have some possibilities of being able to make breakthroughs.
Yeah, that's what's exciting about, I think, this webinar series is getting that insight into all of these technologies that are being worked on and the priorities that are being applied by the Department of Energy. We are at time. I do want to thank you all for submitting questions. If we unfortunately did not have an opportunity of being able to answer those questions, again, I ask that you send an email so that we can go ahead, send an email to the email that was provided earlier so you can get your answers. I want to thank again Undersecretary DeBar, Matthew, Connor, the rest of the OTT team. You guys have been fantastic, and we're looking forward to the ongoing summer webinar series. Just a reminder to all, the next one will be held in two weeks, June 11th at 1 p.m. So we're very excited. The focus there will be learning more about the DOE Labs Embedded Entrepreneurship Program. But thank you again. I hope everyone is safe, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.